This thing on? Hello, everybody. Hoping to get this video out by well, whatever day it is. We're on track to having 2 videos out this week. So, yeah. Wanted to say that little tidbit before we get into it. But in this video, this is going to be the first kind of speed paint / drawing process video that I've ever done. I'm going to be commentating over it because, I like to hear myself talk. So, in today's little drawing, I worked on this here. This is, you guys know who this is. This is Nemesis. It's Resident Evil 3 original design because, I think it's better than this one. I mean, let's just compare the two. I gotta be honest, I think the Resident Evil remake one, good. But it kind of looks like he's covered in a trash bag, I'm not gonna lie. This one, or eek. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so lately I have been trying to kind of loosen up my drawings. I figured out that my pieces kind of come together a bit more when I'm using a bit more of a brush-centric art style, and you're going to see that a lot in this piece. But first off, I always start with little sections. I do one piece of the body at a time or one piece of the art at a time, and it kind of allows me to focus on that, and I feel like I really get that section knocked out before I get on to another one. I used to do the whole outline, and then I would kind of work all around and kind of inwards, and I think what that would do was make me both a little overwhelmed, and I wouldn't focus on specific little details all at once. So some things would come out just a little bit unrefined, or I just didn't put enough work into it to make it look visually appealing. I'm using a Pentel brush pen. This is like the pen, and I actually got recommended this pen by Daniel Warren Johnson. I spoke to him a little bit about art and how to get my art a little better. I really think if you guys are looking to get criticism on your art, reach out to an artist. Most artists are very, very, very willing to talk about how to work on things and really want to talk to you about how to work on things. I've spoken to quite a few comic book artists, and been a big help, actually. They've taught me and given me tips on kind of how to do all these little things that I've been working on. I've also been really, really, really liking the one all up on my computer. He's naughty. Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, I've really, really, really been enjoying these Fudenosuke pens. I think that's how they're pronounced. And I use both of them. I actually got these pens back like in middle school. Not the specific ones I'm using, but I have bought these pens before. And I hated them. I thought they sucked. And it's because I did not know how to use them at all. I was trying to do like really far, like drawn out lines with the hard nib, and it would get like a gradient on there a little bit, and I'd be like, why isn't it solid? So that was like all on me. Anyway, back to my process. Like here's where I discovered that I had a little art glove, and decided to slip that on. But back to my process, I have really been trying to just kind of shrink it down to a couple different pens, and that being more brush pens. I have probably 4 brush pens that I like to use just because the ends and the brush part of it are just slightly different, and I like to use them for different things. So that one that you see that's all the way to the right, next to the Pentel fine liner, that is actually from Barnes & Noble. I think it is called a Let me check. That pen is called a Unipen Fine Line, and it is a really nice brush pen, and it's got very soft nib on the end of it. So if you're looking for one, there it is. Back to the drawing. Just hopping back in here with a Sharpie, you know, like usual. Really good for getting those big areas of black out of the way. I wish it was a little more saturated. I'm trying to find like a perfect pen for that. I have a bigger Pentel brush pen that I've heard is good for it, but I don't really like erasing over it, but maybe I'm just using it wrong. So here in this little area, I am really trying to mix kind of calculated lines and really kind of messy lines. I don't know if you guys have looked at Dan Mora's art at all. Dan Mora, fantastic comic book artist. He has a really, really awesome technique of doing this, doing very calculated, clean lines that are very readable. And then in the background or something like that, or on a piece of clothing, he'll do very chaotic lines, and he makes it look very, very readable, but also very visually interesting. I've been I really enjoyed how this piece came out, and you guys will see towards the very end here. Yeah, on another thing I'm trying to do with my art is I'm trying to figure out how to just add some of these details in after the fact. I guess not penciling them in all the way, which is another kind of Daniel Warren Johnson loose art-esque approach in terms of comic art. So like those little black squiggly lines I put in on the ends of the fingers, those weren't penciled in, but I figured they were gonna look nice, and you know, I think they look nice. And that's kind of been the case with a lot of this drawing. I really liked winging it on this drawing. So now moving over to the other arm, I really struggle with sleeves still, and kind of how to do drooping and hanging sleeves. And I also struggle with how to do symmetrical things like straps. That's something I've been working on and trying to learn. Thankfully, these are on the underside of his arm, so I didn't have to put too much detail into them, but you know, maybe next time I'll be able to put a little bit more, and we'll just, you know, continuously get a little bit better. And like I was saying, going in with the fine liner here, that's just a Pentel 0.3. That looks like that. Really like the ink on all Pentel essentially, so had to pick this one up. But yeah, I go in there and I just do really fine cross hatching with that, and I try and get really small details out of the way with that, because I do think it looks good when not overused. It's kind of, you gotta find a balancing act when it comes to brush and loose pens versus fine liners. But again, I see people that pull it off with both very well. Me personally though, I like to use both, and I like to try and strike a balance between the two. And that's because I think it just gives my art a little bit more fluidity, and it just looks a little bit more organic. And I just think it makes it look a little bit more unique as well, if that makes sense. Yeah, I was really happy with the sketch on this one. I think I nailed the perspective on it, and I've really been learning that. And, you know, this should kind of be an example for most things, but having a good sketch and a good foundation is going to be what makes, you know, your art look refined versus not. Unless you're one of those guys who can just go straight in with the fine liner, and that's, you guys have issues, and I wish I had them too. Here, I couldn't find my ruler, so I just decided to use another sketchbook, and you know, that actually was kind of a good idea, because I think the edge of the sketchbook absorbed some of that extra ink, as opposed to leaving it on the page for it to drag away. Here's actually where I ran into my first little thing where I definitely could have been a little bit more precise with the rocket launcher. I told myself I was going to be, because I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be like a very structured looking piece, but I missed some of those lines, you know, missed how straight I wanted them to be. And then I was just like, okay, let's make the shading look kind of wonky. And it's not wonky, it's very gradient heavy, which I think is a good thing. I think it can look good when it's used well, and I think it looks pretty good here. Not to toot my own horn, but on things like metal and stuff like that, a gradient is really useful tool to use when doing shading, because metal is an odd thing to shade, because you've got some spots where it's almost completely black, and then it almost waves in and out of being completely black, well, all around the surface of the object. So it's kind of interesting to shade metal, and there's a lot more black you would put on the object than you would think. So now we're moving on to the part where I was quite nervous to ink. I was a little scared to do the face, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes the face is where, you know, it all falls apart, because if you mess up the face, usually that's like the number one thing that you're gonna mess up. But I think I ate this up, and this is one of the cases where I almost exclusively used fine liners, and there are a lot of cases where I think it's good to use just fine liners, because you can build up the lines with them and make them look a little bit less stagnant, and that's something I had to break away from, and that's actually one of the things that that DWJ told me I needed to break away from, is my art was looking a little bit too stiff. And looking back at some of my older pieces, it's pretty stiff art. I don't have a lot of line weight, and I think line weight has become one of my big things that I have learned to change up, and I've been very happy with how I've been doing line weight recently to achieve a much more fluid looking drawing. And if your art is looking a little stiff, maybe look at the line weight, maybe take a double check on that, see if it's maybe every line weight looks the same, if there's something else you could try to make your lines look a little bit more mixed up. It'll change your art almost completely. It's pretty cool. All right, we're coming into the last little half here, and yeah, that's pretty much it for what I did. I'm putting some highlights here. Oh, white highlights, that they can be a game changer when it comes to your art. Always think about the highlights. So here's the finished piece. And yeah, I was really happy with that. I think I did the face almost perfectly. I added a couple more things after I finished recording, and I think that was just very small details on the face, and maybe I did a little more on the rocket launcher. I can't quite remember. Yeah, I think my favorite things about this drawing that I did were the face here was definitely my favorite. I think it's the most striking part of the drawing. And then I really like how I did the fingers, and I did variations of how they would be closed up, because most of the time I feel like I draw fingers and they're all kind of in the same general area of the frame instead. But you know, our fingers are all individually jointed, so you know, it might look a little different. And I was also really happy how I did the coat here. I think it looks like a trench coat, and yeah, I was pretty happy with this. So, that being said, that is the drawing. I think I'm gonna color it. I think I'll do some videos on, you know, just coloring stuff. I've got a couple drawings that I've colored. Here's a little sneak peek of one. This is a little Dr. Doom piece I did. Wasn't too happy with how the armor came out. It's a little more gunmetal than I'd like, but oh well. Anyway, yeah, if you want to see more videos like this, I'd be super happy to make them. And yeah, also, I have a poll up right now for the next game I'm gonna play, and that is, I've got 3 options on there, and then the last option is, you know, top comment. I'd love to have some input from you guys on what the next video is going to be. So I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you guys are having a great day wherever and whenever you are. And that's about it.